Well, in a video a while back, I made a real short comment to right at the end of a video. I think it was the video wrapping up the cooling system here on Tinkerbell that I had a surprise in the future about these little Kubota tractors, or just a surprise in general coming up in the future. And this is the surprise. Tinkerbell has a partner in crime. And if you look real closely here, you can just kind of read 7100. That one's really easy to read because it's been under a roof far more of its life. But there is not very much different between these two tractors. I mean, there's difference in the wear and tear in terms of how they've been used over the last 4 decades or more, and how they've been stored and whatnot, but there is very little different. I mean, obviously, this one's got a counterbalance, and I don't have it here, but technically I do have a third one of these, but it's a B6000, and it's a loader. It's a loader model, and that's actually the loader frame on this one is from that, because we need to repair the original loader frame to this, and that gives me a second subframe and loader that I can put on this. But unfortunately, a B6000 is a tractor that uses this exact same loader configuration, but the engine spins the wrong direction, as well as the hydraulic pump is mounted to this side, because when the engine spins the opposite direction, the air cleaner is back here, and then it's open here, and there's a belt out to a pulley and a hydraulic pump here on the side on a B6000, whereas on these 71, 61, and probably the 5100, 5100 is a 2-cylinder, so there are differences in a 5100 to a 61 and a 7100. Number of speeds in the transmission, and 2-piston versus 3-piston. So basically that means I have the entire loader minus the drive shaft assembly and hydraulic pump, because it's a different pump configuration. So I mean, the mounting hardware for the physical pump, well, there's a plate back there that it mounts to, but you can see the structure underneath. It's identical on this, so you literally pull. Yeah, there's a nut on the back side, and this counterbalance comes right off. And I don't know if I can show that. It's really tucked up in there. Is that maybe you can see, maybe. Yeah, maybe you can see that. There is a splined bolt-on piece on the front of that crankshaft that I could get something to drive a shaft to go out to the front to a hydraulic pump. And yeah, you can see the shaft. You can see the shaft right there. If I can get the light, yeah, there's the shaft. And underneath this plate, and also back in here at the front of the engine, is two separate double wide chains with sprockets. So they're not using Lovejoys, they're using two double wide chains and sprockets as the connection points to make the shaft come out there to the front and run that hydraulic pump. And obviously, you know, I don't have the shaft, I don't have the pump, so what I'm contemplating, and I think it's a really, myself, I think it's a realistic thing, is a 22 gallon a minute 2-stage pump is, or at least the ones I can find for sale, are 6 gallons a minute at the second stage when they're at a higher pressure. Mathematically, not taking any efficiency losses into account, that is approximately 10.5 horsepower to run 6 gallons a minute at 3,000 psi over a relief valve. And this tractor at rated RPM is 11 horsepower net. It is net 11 horsepower at the PTO. So at the front of the engine, it's gross 14 horsepower. So I have 11 point something horsepower. Just say 11 horsepower. I don't want to get too optimistic here. And I think this is a reasonable solution because I have that sprocket coming out the front. If I can get a spline and a sprocket to fit that and go to a double wide chain, just like it is on this one, and then run it up forward, and I won't necessarily have the splines on the other end, and just have a Lovejoy that switches it from the shaft over to the middle shaft. It would be attached on both ends because you need a little bit of slop so that if your alignment between the pump and the engine is a half a degree or a degree off, you're not absolutely destroying things. So the other interesting fact between these two tractors is the supposed difference in the PTOs. They're both, you know, the same number of forward speeds, the same number of reverse speeds, and the same number of PTO speeds. But the documents that I'm finding showed that supposedly all three PTO speeds are different between these two tractors. The 7100 is supposed to be at, and this is rated RPM, 514 RPM in one, 850 in two, and 1400 and something in third. Whereas this one is supposedly 540 in one, 750 in two, and 1,000 in third. And I figure the only way I'm going to be able to prove that to myself is to put something on the PTO that can time and give me a accurate. And I'm not crazy enough to. Maybe if I was running a generator, I'd be interested in doing something like that to make sure that the generator came out at the right speed or something. But usually the generator has a gauge on it to show you the 60 cycles so that you can get the generator reasonably close to 60 cycles. So anyway, this is my little surprise. I haven't quite made up my mind what to call this new one, other than to call it Tinkerbell the Second, Baby Tinkerbell, since it's pulling around the wood splitter. I also thought about calling it Woody, since it's going to be pulling the wood splitter around for the time being. That is also, this actually shows anybody that's watched the videos of me doing the cooling system, is this shows the replacement radiator. You can see where the drain tube is on that side, and you come over here and you look at this, and this still has the original OE, original equipment, as in not OEM but OE, what it had when it rolled off the assembly line. And the drain tube is on the proper side versus the replacement. I don't know what else. Now you can see it. I mean, it was the nuts and bolts that were largely the difference between the two. But, you know, the fuel tank, battery, engine, intake, exhaust, fan. That's a, it's a replacement hose. That is, the muffler is a replacement. I do have the original muffler. I figured they were going to get harder to find as time went on, so I hung on to that that muffler. So was one difference that stood out to me, is this one has this box on here, and this is the pressure line on the hydraulic pump in here, and that's the hydraulic pump that runs the 3-point and well, I've seen some pictures of hydraulic lines attached to this, and using because these are the two lines running up to the hydraulic pump in here that's on the engine, back here to the transmission. So it's using whatever fluid is in that transmission is what's getting pumped through that pump. But this box is not on this tractor, and yeah, it is not there. That is the same line, and I'm wondering if that's like, there's something in here that would allow me to, have two threaded ports, and this block is piping the fluid through and around, and there's two threaded ports. So if I take this plate off, I could actually thread lines into those two ports and have a in-series hydraulic function, so that I could actually use that pump to operate the loader. I've had it recommended to me as that being a reasonable way of making the loader function. I've yet to find a video of somebody running the loader up and down with that pump. I know on that one, The with the engine wide open, the loader will go up from all the way on the ground to full height in about 7 or 8 seconds. So under, even if it was cold fluid, I could say, you know, under 10 seconds, but probably once the fluid's warm, it'll do it in around 8 seconds or a little less. Another thing to note that I saw, and this is just minute details, is this one has red handles on the PTO, the high-low, and the four-wheel drive engagement, and the 3-point lift. That is another thing, is the B6000 uses the identical 3-point lift system, so I can rob the entire 3-point linkage and everything off from that tractor, and I can have a functioning 3-point hitch on this. I know this is probably going to look strange, but for whatever reason, there's a bolt in here, and then this thing pivots around. It seems a little bit strange. You can't, it's hard to see it on the other tractor, but this rod actually has to be physically removed to have the backhoe on it. Because you can see where that rod is, and that holds that hitch receiver in there. And on this one, you can see that hole is behind that plate, and you have to remove that, well, basically subframe. It's part, because the backhoe is not mounted via a 3-point. The backhoe is mounted via a hard mount point. That slide-in point there, and then down here you have these arms that come up and attach to the subframe of the loader. So you really can't put this backhoe on a tractor without a loader on it, short of making your own frame to support those arms, the frame mount arms from the backhoe. So it's, in terms of without building something, you have to have a loader to have this backhoe. And there was, yeah, this is B670. I remember we went in trying to get parts and pieces for this thing, get these parts down here to replace and whatnot, bushings and these rubber stops, and they punched in that B650, and they had a hydraulic valve come up on the screen at the Kubota dealership, and they had to actually contact the corporate to get the actual blow up of the backhoe, because they figured, well, nobody's ever going to want parts again for that. We're just going to call it use that number for a valve unit for a tractor. So, because this, you know, this is over 40 years old, they can be reusing model numbers eventually. But I do have hubs coming. One's come. We're gonna replace the hubs on this one, and I'll switch them around and make the tire come way out, because if you look, that's another minor difference, is these fenders come out and then stop. The handle is ripped off, and if you look at this one, that same point is here, and then there's these extension piece that comes out, and then the tire is still beyond, well, for the most part, it's beyond the extension. And the handles haven't ripped out on ours. Well, I say ours, but they're both ours now. There is one size difference in the rears. These are, well, they're 7x16. I think they're 7x16. Thought I saw 7x16. Yeah. Seven by 16, that may be completely illegible. And these ones are 8 by 16. And the fronts are identical. 6 by 12s. Yeah, 6 by 12s on the front. I just, I know if I get anywhere near any kind of pavement, you take it out of four-wheel drive. It's just, it's what you do. So, this is my little surprise. I wanted to get the third one lined up here to show the B6000, but I never got around to getting it moved because it is not capable of moving under its own power. It has to be drug around. That's how you get a tractor for free, is when it's broken. It basically needs a complete engine go through. But I don't know what else to jibber jabber on about. But this is, yeah, and that's I guess that's one other thing I could talk about. Is I've talked previously, I made the video about having a wood splitter mounted to the loader, and that is my primary thought for this tractor, is with a loader, and it would have a dedicated splitter mounted to it. But what I'm specifically looking for is a splitter that is the short beam with the trunnion mounted cylinder, because if I don't have a backhoe on the back of this thing, I have to have some kind of weight, because, you know, even if I keep the weight under 400 pounds, that 400 pounds is enough to make the back end of this thing come off the ground, probably even if I have liquid filled tires. So I would wind up putting the 3-point everything on the back end of this thing just to be able to, I don't, you know, some kind of weight, whether it be a drum full of water, a box full of rocks, or, because, you know, this, there's no weight, there's no real ton weight on this. So that's kind of the plan. The other thing that I thought about is this one has basically a brand new clutch in it, and this one is T-minus needing a clutch desperately. I probably would be really optimistic to think that I'm going to get another 100 hours out of that clutch. There's going to come a point where it's going to cease to function. And being that both of these tractors are essentially identical, is to literally transfer the backhoe and the loader from this one onto this one. Because the more I think about it, to run this backhoe and to run that loader, I don't need the extra 2 horsepower that this tractor has over this tractor. I can run the loader and I can run the backhoe with 2 less horsepower, no problem at all. Maybe when I'm traveling somewhere up a road, I gotta put it in 5th instead of 6th to go up the hill because a little less power. But the more I think about it, it's better to have that 2 extra horsepower, or however much it is by the time it gets to the PTO, for a power takeoff implement than it is to have it for this, because I don't need that extra power to run these 2 attachments. People might disagree with me on that, but that's my line of thinking. So I am literally running out of daylight as I'm standing here talking, and I'm really glad that I got the flashlight on my forehead, otherwise you wouldn't be able to see anything right now. But that is my little surprise. And you can see, yeah, you can see there's a good bit of, for whatever reason, they rust when they're not under a roof. They rust. This side is nowhere near as bad. In that area, yeah, you can see the weld. It's welded in there, and the rain. It's got to be the rainwater getting in there. If it's not the rainwater, it would be, you know, coolant or something. Because this one, there is nothing, no rust, and on either side. Yeah, it's completely rust free on this one. I do have a little bit of a fuel leak on the center injector. So anyway, I wanted to get them side by side and compare. I mean, it has to be a tap in for doing a hydraulic function in series, and that tractor doesn't have it because it was sold off the lot with the loader. So that would be my theory, is that's why it doesn't have that box, is because it was OE on the dealer lot with the loader. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. Whether it's right or not, I have no way of proving it. So anyway, we're literally half dark out now, so I'm gonna call it, and thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye.